the master plan, as well as we will be getting some of the results from our consultant Populous. So 3 big dates for us. Let me jot them down. So with that, we'll call for the approval on the adoption of the last month's minutes.
So move.
All right, I need a second.
Second.
All right, thank you. So the minutes are approved. All right, and now we move right on to the other business. And today, we are very happy to welcome Chief Young, Police Chief. He's going to give us a presentation of security in the park.
Madam Chair, before Chief Young comes to the podium, I do have a couple more announcements. And
Sure.
very briefly, this weekend, March 16, is the kickoff of our Little League Baseball and Fast Pitch Softball at the Union Sports Complex, so lots of teams have registered. Also, the splash pads at the airline and also the community center will be open by the end of this month. The splash pad at Ethel E. Tracy is under renovation, so the holding tank is being repaired, and it should be completed this summer for opening. So, and also, I do want to say that the residents who cannot attend the Duck Pond ribbon cutting can watch it on Facebook, or they could tune in to the city's television channel 15. So the government channel 15, they can watch the Duck Pond ribbon cutting scheduled for this Thursday at 10 o'clock,
Great.
like you mentioned. And also, I'd like to ask Steve Gallagher, our park superintendent, to give us a quick update on the, I guess, the results of the winter TAF games, which was held back in February 24th and 25th. So, Steve, can you have an update?
Yes, all right, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. We had the 3 events on February 24th to 25th here in Victoria. The first one was golf. We had 32 participants. All of them were local participants. The flag football, we had 20 teams. Those 20 teams played 8-on-8 football, and then they also divided up into 5-on-5 football. And so for those 20 teams, they all did stay from out of town, and so that was a good number. We figured about 100 room nights for that, that they came in for. And then our youth fast pitch tournament, we had 40 of the teams that showed up that signed up for that, and 32 of them came from out of town. So if you can, think about that with the numbers, about 1 to 3 or something like that with family members. So really good room nights for that. And then, of course, we also had that disc golf event that was non-TAF event, but they had 298 players. So we were full in town for the hotels for all these events, the 24th to 25th of February. So it was a beautiful weekend for sports, great weather, and a lot of great compliments. And the maintenance team did a great job. So I just want to shout out again to the parks maintenance team for prepping all the fields and the fields and the parks that they had to do to get it ready for the citizens and the visitors. It was a wonderful turnout.
That's great news. It seems like it's just getting better every year.
Yes.
They're really growing. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So back to Chief Young. So at our last meeting, can you hear me?
I can't hear you too well. I'm sorry. Maybe it's just
Microphone
me.
is, the microphone's working?
Okay. Please go ahead, Ma.
Okay, so Madam Chair, at our last meeting, you asked for a quick update on security or level of crime in our parks. As you know, we have 17 parks in our system. And so today, I've asked Police Chief Chuck Young to come in and give us an update or a report on crime status in our parks. So, Chief Young?
Afternoon, everybody.
On the screen right here.
Aaron Gabrish is our crime analyst, and Aaron put this together of the, I believe it's 17 parks that are within the city that are in the system. What I asked Gabrish to do is pull up the data within 200 feet of the actual park line. So that gives us pretty much an overview of the crime in the area. If you see on the chart, I know it's kind of small, but you can see on your, I was going to print it out, but I figured you would have it on the dais in front of you. All crime, so I compared 23 to 22. You'll see that the drug charges in 22 were 51, and all the other charges are in the yellow in to the left is the explanation of what all the yellow is. Public intoxication, evading, fail to identify, possession of tobacco, other things like that. So if you look at, we've had an actual decrease in 23 compared to 22, about 33 different offenses. If you look on the right, they're what we call Part 1 crimes are their murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. Those are the crimes against a person. And then you have crimes against property, which are theft, burglary, burglary falls under that, and auto theft. So a majority of the crimes that you have in front of you are in the Part 2 category. Burglary is on there. 2022, you had 9, and burglary, you had 16. So that's a little bit of an uptick, but remember, we're going 200 feet out from the park. So that could be the residents that are around the park. But I wanted to use that to capture, it's not just going to be within the park on all of the events. It's going to be in the curtilage around it. So I'll go through this, and then I guess we'll go back and we'll have questions, and if there's something that we need to highlight, please. All the other charges, again, it's 73 of the offenses, which makes up 37%. So there's not anything that's super large. I mean, the smaller categories are your 26% or 51 of that 200. So as you can see on there. Now, I asked her to pull up the top 5 parks with the most crime. So we could see the Victoria Community Center, just that structure, that building right there represents 17.5% of the total crime in 22-23. And if you look at the 22-23 comparison, it's kind of gone down a little bit on the bottom part.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a grand total of 76 on the top one. Riverside had 62 offenses. So then you dissect that 62 offenses on the bottom chart, and Riverside shows 42 in 2022 and 20 in 2023, with a reduction of about 50%. Will Rogers Park, that seems like that's the one to focus on. We've had a total of 26 of the most criminal activity. Now, some of that could be the curfew violations. It could be some of that Part 2 crime. Anything that's not Part 1, murder, rape, robbery, ag assault, burglary, theft, and auto theft is all of your Part 1 crimes. So the Will Rogers, we will have a breakdown of that crime coming up. So let's take just the community center as one of the 5. So this is number 1 of 5. Drug charges have decreased by 50%. All other offenses have increased 7 to 14, but then, as you see on the bottom, all of the others are PIs, there's 4. Evading, there's 3. Fail to identify, possession of tobacco by a minor, hindering apprehension, etc. So, I mean, it's a lot of numbers, and I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but what I'm trying to, I guess the overall of this is focusing on the parks compared to the rest of the city. Not that there's crime in the parks, but the parks are relatively safe. I mean, we've had a reduction from last year to this year. So statistically, the crimes are going down. Riverside Park. Now, when we talk about calls, I'll get to calls in just a second, but we're actually talking about crime right now. So here again, here's Riverside. Down 4, all other offenses just up a little bit, 7 to 8. Thefts are down, DWI, those are arrests that are made within the confines or within 200 feet of the curtilage. Sexual assaults at the park, yes, ma'am.
So Chief, when you say calls versus crime, real quick, so a crime is something that's been charged, it's a chargeable offense by PD versus the call?
Sure, you can make a call of a car burglary, and then if we arrest somebody, then that will show up on the arrests. So these are arrests for right now.
But when you say charges, you mean arrest? I guess, okay.
Yes. I'll show you, let's go straight to calls. We'll go back a little bit. We'll go straight to calls. Calls in the parks. Okay, so
Okay.
there you go.
There we
So
go.
what you're going to see is a huge number in 2022. Compare that 569 frequent patrols compared to 70. What we've done is in 2022, The focus was really on the parks. And I asked the analyst that pulled the data, are these numbers right? Because they look awful high compared. And there was a push and an emphasis on the parks to spend a lot of time physically in the parks in 2022. So in looking at that, I mean, look at the numbers, frequent patrol, 569, but every time that almost was like a call, okay? It was that it would just randomly drop or it would come to the dispatch queue to have a squad to go to the park, drive through the park. It was a mandatory thing instead of the officers on routine patrol. So we don't capture it on the right. We captured it on the left as far as having to go to a park, having to go to a specific location and physically marking out there. 2023, because of our staffing, we've expanded that a little bit. Not so many frequents at the park. We're still there. Okay, so we're still in the parks. Don't confuse that for us not being in the parks. We're not obligated by a call to go to the park. Like if you would call and you would say that your car was broken into or something, or you can't find, the puppy dog ran off and you can't find the dog, or whatever the case would be, a welfare concern. There was 6 in 2023. Welfare concern on the left-hand side. I don't think I see it at all on there. Welfare concern, 45 of them. Yeah. So calls, we're still going. Doesn't make any difference where people call us. We're still going to respond to that. But the frequent patrol and the traffic stops, as you see on the traffic stops, 22 to 193. I asked her about that. I said, why? And it was a directed focus inside the parks, whereas in 2023, we did not have that directed focus.
You mean 2022?
2022.
Right, you didn't
we
have the
lived
directed
there.
focus.
We
right.
lived there.
Right.
And in
Oh.
23, not so much.
Okay, got it.
We were still at work, but that's about the time that we were, to be honest, our staffing issues were, and still are, quite a situation. Now, we were doing frequent patrols at the car burglaries, for example, car burglaries at the hotels. Some of the hotels were being victimized by car burglaries. So we had frequent patrols where we would actually go spend additional time at the car burglary where's the offense happening? That's where we need to be. So that's why we would go to the I'm sorry, not the apartments, but the hotels, just to try. That was when catalytic converters were really going on. That was a car burglary. That counts as a car burglary. Okay, so we had a problem with that happening. We put cops on the dots, basically. Now that with legislature and city ordinances and things like that, catalytic converters are, well, I don't want to say this too loud, but catalytic converters are not as frequent as they used to be. We'll go with that. So let's see. Top calls, all of the calls, frequent patrol. If you look, that's 100. The traffic stops was 43%. We were doing a lot of traffic inside the parks. So statistical breakdown of the crime. We have hours we're supposed to not, anyone's supposed to be not in the park from 11 to 6 a.m. That's when the parks are closed, but you're still having crime that's occurring. Now, some of that could be, and when we say, again, when we get to all crime, it's all crime. It's a ticket, it's possession of tobacco, it's a sexual assault, it's a murder, it's whatever it would be, is all crime in that category. So you see in that top column on the right, you see those hours that are blacked out or greened out. Those are the time no one's supposed to be there. And I know, again, this is a lot of numbers, an enormous amount of numbers, but that's what Erin does. She's our numbers lady. Let's see. And that gets you by the month, all crime. And then that gets you all crime by the time of the 24-hour clock. And if you look at 10 o'clock, but that was last year, 30 particular all crimes compared to 6 this year. So, but one thing to note is you have the 21, 22, 23, and midnight. It seems like there's been a little bit of an increase in that in all crime, 16, 17, I want to say that's 13 and 30. But the park's supposed to be closed then. So I don't know if, I mean, and this is all crime, all parks. I mean, I would be here, you folks would be here for the next week if we wanted to dissect each one of those different parks. So I know this is just gonna, okay, so now I know that we're at the end there. If you want, let's go back to Riverside. Any questions at this point? And I know you probably have a trillion of them, but they are numbers. They are broken down. Did we spend a lot of time in 22 versus 23? Statistically, right there, yeah, we did. Traffic stops, 22 traffic stops. 911 hang-up, 20 in the park. Investigations, 15. Mental health emergencies, 14. Burglar alarm, that could be an audible burglar alarm. But remember now, this is all parks, 200 feet. So if a house burglar alarm goes off near Queen City Park, for example, that's gonna tick up on there.
Madam Chair, if you recall, when we were going through the Parks Master Plan in 2021, one of the things that we heard from the residents who participated in the development of the Parks Master Plan was better security in the parks. So because of that, in 2022, we were very aggressive in responding to that request. So in 2022, as you could see, we were very engaged and working with the police to do more patrols. And as you can see, the numbers are significantly down because we really emphasize safety when it comes to our parks. We want to make sure that our residents who use the park are safe and they can really enjoy our parks without worry. So I want to thank the chief for really dedicating police officers driving through the parks. And we also have our staff who also drive through the parks. So every day we have a park staff in one of our vehicles driving through each park, each of the 17 parks. Again, because safety is the #1 priority for us, for our residents who use the park. So thank you, Chief, because the numbers are significantly down.
I mean, if you look at the community center, we're down 27%. This is everything from 44 to 32. You go to the next one, Riverside, down 52% from 42 to 20. Go down one more, 17 to 17 at Queen City Park with the major number up there being the drug charges, 7 to 7. I don't know what the numbers are currently. I don't know what the 2024, but I wouldn't be able to, I mean, we're only in March, so again, yes, sir.
I just want to be clear. I think you brought this up. I know you brought it up. These are actual calls. These are documented somehow, some way. I mean, obviously, you don't know what you don't know. So if the citizens don't feel safe there and have obviously elevated this, but not necessarily making a call, correct?
Well, I mean, we know of the calls.
Yes,
Yes, we
sir.
can document that. So if a person calls in and for whatever, a disturbance or whatever that goes on, or the officer drives up on it.
Yes, sir.
See, so that's, did you make the call? Well, there's the officer already there. So, I mean, they will mark out probably, their routine mark out would be an investigation to try to determine what it was. I don't know that they're going to actually change it to a disturbance. They would leave it as that investigation. So being on the park, that's why we drive the overt police cars. Hope that answers your question, but if someone calls, we're going to be there, or we could get flagged down. So flag downs could be on here, but more than likely on an investigation, they're going to tell the dispatcher where they are, obviously, in case they need help or anything like that. But that will just simply be an investigation. And that brings me to this. Let's go to, I think I can answer that. Let me go back here to the calls. Because the call actually counts as an investigation, actually counts as a call. There's your crime. I'm going to get to the calls. Nope. Guess we went past it, sorry. There's crime, crime, crime.
I guess what I'm trying to say, and there's no way to qualify or quantify this, is for every one call, there may be 2 non-calls.
Sure, that's true. There's no doubt about that. Or they happen to see the officer and they flag the officer down. So again, that could count as a call. I mean, the frequent patrols, there's 70 of the patrols as compared to, there's 500 different, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's a significant number.
Yes, sir.
But what I mean is if you look at 22 and 23, the amount of, that's probably the wrong word, but the amount of energy or the amount of overtness or the amount, whatever that amount was, and you compare that number, it wasn't that drastic of a number when we weren't as documented being marked out. Does that make sense? The frequency patrol, you have in 2022, you have 500 more than you have in 23. But was there that much of a significant difference in the crime in 22 and 23? It's gone down. Is it because people saw us there and decided to not commit criminal activity? Or were the numbers kind of a self-inflicted whenever we write a citation for whatever it would be? The traffic stops wouldn't be if we weren't initiating that traffic stop.
Yes, sir.
So that number is going to obviously increase compared to the traffic stops of 22, of the number 22 in 23, sorry. So what I'm saying is we were more proactive here, and we were not less proactive, we were covering the rest of the city.
If I may comment there, Chief?
Yes, sir.
I think this is awesome in your data analysis that you have here. And it shows the different variables that's probably not seen by the public or anybody around. With your police department, as thin as it is and stretched out among the city, I think you had strong transparency here in 22, and it shows for 23. And then people are kind of getting the idea that the police, hey, they may come by, we don't know, or whatever. So it's
Right,
so
thank you.
people are starting to learn about this and also condition themselves that there is security around here.
Absolutely.
And on the calls, I mean, I understand those things. A lot of people sometimes just cold calls or whatever because they get upset with someone. But it sounds like you've really got this under control. And I think the biggest thing what you have is a high form of transparency within the parks. So which I'd like to congratulate you on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I know, again, it's a lot of numbers.
Can you go back to the slide for Riverside, please?
Yes, ma'am. Calls? Let's see.
Yeah, crime, I guess.
Yeah, the whole thing for Riverside, okay. Oh, there's your all crime. We're getting closer. Well, guess who went the wrong way? Who was that? Okay, here we go. Down 40, 42. No, 42, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. 42 to 20.
Down 52%.
Yes, ma'am. You know, drug charges were not there as often, perhaps, compared. That's why we caught 16 and we only caught 4 in 2023. All other stuff is your park curfew, your public intox, possession of tobacco, theft, DWI. The DWI is a proactive thing. I mean, if you look at a lot of those, a lot of those are the proactive, especially the top two. Well, DWI is proactive. That's 3 to 3. Sexual assaults reported at the park, down to 0. Simple assault 1. But the numbers are relatively small. So that's why I asked Aaron to just give me the top 5, because we would go through 17 slides of the comparison, and I just said, just give me the top 5, because the numbers are very small.
Have y'all done a study, sir, on comparing to other communities our size of compare and contrast, because it sounds like what they're doing with the parks and all the games and everything coming into the city, it sounds like we have a pretty well secured area, and people are willing to come into our community.
And I think that's wonderful to compare,
Another population size type community. And
we did not do that. We do not have that as a comparison, no. Personally, I would like to see, and I can report back, I would like to see if the sports complex, what the sports complex and golly, our car burglaries are down, our auto thefts are down compared to, which knock on wood, thank you for that. And I think it has to do with people, places, behaviors. We are going to where the hot spots are. And for right now, statistically, it shows that the parks are not the hot spots. Now, they could become that overnight. They could become that tonight, tomorrow, next week. But statistics are showing that they're relatively not as bad compared that they were last year. So what we're doing with our resources, the limited resources that we have, we're putting those resources in the targeted hotspots. It's now not a park. It's now not a hotel. It's now not that, because the crime is moved. Are we chasing those dots? Perhaps, but that's okay. I will chase dots to keep them from happening. We're now noticing a car burglary situation. They're down, but we're seeing car burglaries. People are leaving, and every time that you'll see me in council, whenever I have the opportunity to talk, is people are leaving guns in their cars overnight, and the guns are being protected by 1/8 inch or however thick a piece of glass is, and that's protecting their gun. Because they leave it in their apartment complex, they forgot it under the seat. They forgot it in a purse. They forgot the laptop in their car in the middle of the night, and the person just tugging on the door opens up the door, or they'll leave the key fob somewhere else inside the car. And, I'm not trying to tell any secrets here, but, that's what we're facing. And that's what we're facing all over the city. So if I could say anything, would be, please take your guns, take them in the house at night. Don't leave anything in your car. Hide it, lock it, and take it. So,
you're done an analysis also with the gender and the age group that's doing these kinds of things? What is it that we have to target?
well, I do know that. I do know that statistic, and that is a majority of, because I have asked for that data mining, because we went for a period of 10 days, 9 days without a car burglary. And I thought, what's that all about? And it ended up that some of the young offenders that we have in the town are actually pulling on doors, and they're finding cars unlocked. And for an additional charge, I don't know if they were arrested for car burglary or what their charge was, but they were in the juvenile detention center. So people, places, behavior, who's doing what to whom, where. That's why we have the dots. That's why we have the maps. We try to saturate. If there's nothing going on here, we're going to redirect our resources to here and focus on that. So we're trying to get technology. We're trying to have technology help us. But to answer the question, it's a juvenile. The last murder offense that we had was involving a juvenile or a very young person. And the weapon that was used in that offense was taken out of a nearby city, car burglary. So the gentleman that was murdered, I don't know his age, but he was not senior, but he was, I don't remember how old he was, but the youngster that shot him was right in the juvenile age. So that's what we have to factor. So it's the youth that's getting the guns, and they're getting the guns from the car burglaries. And as you see, what's this one have? This one doesn't have, Will Rogers doesn't have burglary of a motor vehicle, 0, as compared to 1 in 2022 in Will Rogers. So let's go back to the community center real quick. Riverside had burglary of a motor vehicle, only 1. compared to 2. So maybe the frequent patrols where, oh gosh, there's the cops again. Oh gosh, there's the cops. Oh gosh, there's the cops. Maybe that was a deterrent that kept criminal activity from going down, from happening. And now we're reaping the benefits of probably 2022. Could it ramp back up tomorrow? Sure.
Positive thing with this data is that it shows you where we need to focus our efforts. Where else do we need to shift our resources? So based on this report, it shows that Will Rogers Park and Queen City Park are the 2 parks where crime has essentially stayed the same or slightly increased. So those are the 2 parks that we will be working on to see how we can further reduce crime. So Will Rogers Park and Queen City Park. Both parks are in the Queen City neighborhood. And so that's where we will focus our efforts.
But if you look at the proactiveness of the drug charges in 22, you had 0, but in 23, you had 3. So by us making that arrest, kind of adds a mark or a tick mark against us, if you will. That's the proactiveness. So when I see Part 2 crimes and I see that Part 2 crimes are up, I'm okay with that because that's your proactive arrest. That's your gun charges. That's your arresting people with a gun creates a tick mark, which causes the numbers to increase. So more guns I can get off the streets that are in the hands of the criminal element all day long. That's what we'll do. We have arrested, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mike, I'm curious though, so looking at Will Rogers Park and Queen City Park, is the lighting there adequate? Is it of the same caliber that we have at other parks? Is that a factor? The lighting, not enough lighting?
Actually, 2 years ago, we increased the lighting
Okay.
in both parks.
Okay.
So Queen City Park, we installed five LED solar lights. So I think that may have helped in keeping the crime at bay. So we continue to look at ways to improve the 2 parks in Queen City. And as you know, Queen City is one of the 2 neighborhoods that the city has targeted for revitalization because it's a high poverty community. So we are addressing public safety, code enforcement, housing, jobs, all of those factors in that neighborhood to improve quality of life in Queen City. So we think if we revitalize it, improve quality of life, that will ultimately help with the reduction in crime.
Any idea if those 2 parks are, I don't know how to phrase this, but are those 2 parks used as frequently or as much as, say, the other parks? Meaning, I'm thinking of Riverside and how many people per day come and go through that park. And I'm thinking perhaps that is a factor as well as keeping crime down. It could go the other way, but the more people in and out of a space, the more eyes you have looking. And so any idea if those 2 parks, Will Rogers and Queen City, are used?
Anecdotally, we know that Will Rogers Park is used quite a bit by the residents. However, not so much in Queen City Park. So Queen City Park is not used very much. So the plan is to work with the neighborhood, with Christ Kitchen, to reactivate that park. So we will do more activities in the park,
More
Zumba in the
programming.
park. Exactly. So we can encourage residents to use Queen City Park more. So we do have an event, Day of Caring, on April 13th at Queen City Park, where we will invite the residents to come out and help plant trees and community garden. Also have a pop-up park and other activities in the park. Again, the goal is to activate the park, encourage residents to come and use the park. So Queen City Park is still a challenge, but we are working closely with Christ Kitchen and the neighborhood residents on revitalizing that park.
I do want to mention, so city staff continues to do a really great job of advertising all the different programs they have via Facebook. So Facebook in that, you guys are using it really great. This Day of Caring, I'm sure, is being thrown up, posted up there so people know what's going on. So Facebook is a great place to look at Parks and Rec's programs. And, and of course, if you have any questions, anybody could call the city, the Parks and Rec's office and find out about it. But you guys are doing a great job keeping the city informed of all the different programs you guys have got going on. So thank you for
Definitely a
that.
credit to the staff.
From toddlers to seniors. I saw toddlers on the trail and then saw sipping seniors or something. So you guys got it going on, so. But that's great about the Day of Caring on April 13 for Queen City.
Mike, on the comparison of the parks there, I'm sorry, go ahead. Have they done any scientific research in comparing, again, the parks versus other communities who are experiencing the same ideal that we are? And maybe they may have other ideas they might be able to bring in here
That's a very good
to
idea.
help families.
Jesse, we could look into doing that, but we haven't formally done that.
Okay,
But we definitely can look at other communities that are experiencing the same, see how we can compare lessons learned and so on.
right.
What we would have to do along that line is we would have to basically have some square footage, because you have to compare that apple to that apple, right? So if you had a park in another city, then you're concerned, I can, forecasting ahead, I can forecast and see that if you would have a park that's X number of square miles or whatever it would be, you would have to compare something exactly like that in the same perhaps demographic neighborhood or in a
Yeah, it's a lot of
park.
variables all put together
Just an
in there.
enormous amount of, and so I'm not sure that comparing that to this, we could do that. I'm just trying to think a couple steps ahead. I'll be able to,
Well, by doing that
I look
too,
forward to
when you
trying
have
to
that, it'll
accomplish
help you
that.
make some good decision-making
Absolutely,
opportunities
sure,
on things that work, so.
sure.
And we had a similar park in San Antonio to Queen City Park that I dealt with. So we've been talking to the Parks Department there to see the lessons learned, how did they address it, the issues. So we're always looking at other cities to learn and see how we can do better.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Off the top of your head, because I know it's not a subject for this meeting, what do you know about the crime rate in the area around the parks in Queen City and Will Rogers compared with the rest of Victoria?
Well, to be able to add or to quickly summarize that, if I take the Queen City Park and I've got 17 offenses in 2023 to the 19, that makes it, doing the math, 36 crimes that have happened in those two parks. Overall, I want to say last year we had 6,000 throughout the
Those two
city.
areas?
Throughout the city. So doing the fast math, we have 36, goes into about 6,000 offenses. My belief would be it's relatively small. It would be a small number.
What I'm trying to get at is, does the neighborhood problems bleed into the park as opposed to the park problems bleeding into the neighborhood?
I think if we actually, to be 100% on board with this, I think if we found the exact address of each one of the parks and only used that, those numbers would be significantly lower than they already are of stuff that just happened at that physical address. Because if you're marking out on traffic on a DWI, you're not marking out at 1701 fill in the blank street. So it's not going to pick it up. So that's why we decided to go out 200 feet. Well, 200 feet is a pretty significant, it's probably every house that faces or touches the boundary of that park. And if they were a car burglary, if they were victimized, if no matter what they were, they are in that statistic. So this is the worst case scenario of crime instead of it being specifically at the park address. Because I think the numbers are going to be dramatically lower if she just took the address of Victoria Community Center, period. And I don't think people aren't going to know that. Now, that 911, you're going to get a call there. But to make an actual traffic stop or to make a drug arrest, you're going to say the 1300 block of fill in the blank street. So, I mean, that number, and that's just off the top of my head, because earlier today I heard someone ask for a case number or a report number, which includes all of the crimes, right? Everything. And that's a case number. And I want to say they were in like 1,500. So that's 500 a month times the 12, which would give you roughly 6,000. And now you're talking 36 offenses into that 6,000. So it's probably a very low number. That's including the curtilage of the park. So I think the safety of the parks is pretty strong. I really do. I think the parks are safe. The criminal activity, we're taking care of that when we're talking about the drug arrest, the proactiveness. But those are parks. People are supposed to be at parks. People have fun at parks, which is the objective. So I think the parks are, my opinion, I think the parks are very safe.
Any other questions from the commissioners or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank
What-
you.
Really appreciate the data.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Mike?
Yeah, that's all the report we have, Madam Chair, for today.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about anything the Parks and Rec Commission? All right. Well, with that, then, I will go ahead and call the meeting to adjourn. I need a motion. All right, I need a second.
Second.
All right, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.